Yeah.
Mike, I guess it could be a simple question, or it could be we could sit here and talk about it all day. But I mean, Khabib and his wrestling. I mean, wrestling is not a new martial art or something we haven't heard of. So why is his so much more effective and so much different than anybody else's we see?
It's just something he's been doing his whole life. He didn't come from freestyle Greco wrestling to mixed martial arts. He's just been kind of doing mixed martial arts his whole life. Um, and just talking to a lot of different guys, not just guys he's competed against, but guys that he's trained with. He just brings a different type of pressure, a different kind of strength. He has really really good hips, and there's a lot of moving parts to it. It's just really interesting because usually it's like a guy with that good at wrestling, you can go back and you can watch like, oh well, let's watch him at the junior world championships or the Yargan or like all these different wrestling tournaments, but there's nothing. He's just an MMA fighter, so um, it's just different when you train wrestling. As you all know, wrestling starts in a low stance unless you're wrestling Greco. But it's like he started MMA wrestling, so I think that that's what makes his style so unique. And he's good at he can shoot low level, he can fight in the clinch, pretty versatile in both offensive aspects of wrestling. He's just really good, and this fight's unreal. The more you break it down, and like I'm getting into like watching Gaethje's old wrestling matches, and I'm really starting to kind of it's the wrestling is going to play a big part in this fight as it does in all of Khabib's fights. But this is just like the first guy he's faced. That like this guy wrestled Division One in college. This is the first guy that he's fought that's been a Division One wrestler. He took Jordan Burroughs to a 7-4 decision. That's for people that don't know who Jordan Burroughs is. That's the team captain for the United States wrestling. It's he's a phenomenal athlete. So it's gonna be really interesting.
So you touched on it a little bit there. So I mean, like anything can happen in a cage fight, right? That's why we love it, right? But if you were designing somebody to beat that style of Habib, man, when you talk about the defensive wrestling that Justin Gaethje has, you add in the nasty leg kicks that he has, and you add in the power that he's got in his hands. I mean, is that kind of the blueprint if you were designing a guy that you say this is probably going to be problematic for Habib?
I would say one of the best challenges you could put in front of Khabib. But there's a big part of me that still thinks stylistically Ferguson could be the guy. You know what I mean? It's just like Gaethje has the wrestling, and not only does he have the wrestling, but the guys that he's training with for his wrestling. His main partner is Ryan Deacon. He was number one seeded guy at 157 pounds last wrestling season, won senior nationals. Really good wrestler. But we all know Khabib's a different animal. But at least he's got good training partners. But I feel like length and a certain level of grappling is what's going to give going to give Khabib a lot of problems. You know what I mean? So it's like I was going back and watching the Iaquinta fight tonight, and the way that Al was defending the single, kind of limp legging away. It's like if he had the length to reach all the way around and grab his hip and spin his leg out and possibly take his back, which is something you could see Tony Ferguson doing. Both are interesting fights. I mean, these guys are the top of the heap. Justin Gaethje's as dangerous as they come, and I think he's going to push Khabib for sure.
The last thing for me, I mean, there's obviously more to it than this, but Gaethje's kind of said like, I get it. Habib puts you up against the fence, you're in trouble, but he doesn't take people out in the open mat, out in the center. Do you feel that way? I mean, is that a fair assessment? Is that what we need to look for right away? Is if it's against the cage, he's in trouble?
Dude, yeah, you got to control the space with Khabib, and you even watch Al on a day's notice. He was able to dictate some of that space, and we always say like stay inside the black line. You know what I mean? There's that one black line, the one that Mark Henry always talks about. There's the black line that goes around the octagon. You get a guy past the black line, you're getting him against the fence. You keep him within the black line, you're in the center. So, Al did a good job of it, and I would like to think that Gaethje could do the same thing. But I mean, once Khabib gets you going on your heels, it's like trying to stop a freight train. It's damn near impossible. So it's going to be really interesting. And one thing about Justin, when you break him down, especially when you watch the Tony Ferguson fight, he has subtle changes in his footwork to where Khabib will dive on that leg and go low, whereas I feel like Justin could deflect that in the way that he'll throw a right hand and step through into southpaw, and he can kind of move his leg out of the way and maybe kind of bull and matador Khabib a little bit. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be a really fun fight, and what a way to cap off this last 3-week stretch. I mean, this has been unreal. It's been one of the best experiences of my career, and it all ends. The grand finale is one of the best lightweight fights we could potentially see in the history of the UFC. So it's going to be awesome.
Mike, were these two fighters ever fighters that you had prepared for at all back in your lightweight days?
It's funny you say that. When I first got in the UFC, I was at UFC 148, and I saw Khabib fight Gleison Tebow, and I was like, he's 19-0. I called Joe Silva, and I was like, hey, that's the guy I want to fight. Like, I just knew he was tough. He had a sick record. I'm like, I think I match up good with him. And as time's gone on, he's become the man we know today. I'm not saying I don't think I could beat him, but I had my eyes on him for a long time when I was at lightweight. You know, it's like I always said, I think a guy to give Khabib problems is a guy that's got some length, a guy that can scramble, that can blend a little wrestling with some grappling. You know, but could he? There's a good chance he would have beaten me, but I like the challenge. You know what I mean? 155 was just not my weight class, as we all know. But hell of an athlete. He brings something cool to the table. Like Gaethje, I never really had my sights set on him, just because you know, as he came in the UFC, you know what kind of fights they're going to put him into. And as he's coming in, I was kind of on my way out at 155 pounds. And thank God, because let me tell you what, I got a long body and I got long legs, and he would butcher me. He's a tough guy, man. These guys are legit. But yeah, I put myself in that situation. And that actually, the fight with Khabib, it almost happened it almost happened twice. But in Tampa, when he lost his fight with Ferguson, when Ferguson went to the hospital, it was like a week's notice. They're like, hey, do you want to step in and fight Khabib? And I'm like, God dang it. Like, I've been training for a southpaw this whole camp against Beneil Dariush. I'm feeling like I was very ready for that fight, as I showed. So I was like, we thought about it, but I just thought it wouldn't have been the best decision. And, you know, but it was always there.
Then everyone talks about the U.S. versus Dagestan wrestling, that aspect. But what do you make of Khabib's striking? Because Trevor Whitman says it's great, it's unorthodox, same as Justin Gaethje. Khabib says he has a good jab, but as an analyst, when you look at his striking, what stands out?
Dude, it's so underrated. I mean, you could hear in the commentary, like I said, I watched the Iaquinta fight again today, and they're like, you can hear Rogan kind of ripping on Khabib with his chin being up. But as time has gone on, that's just his style, and what that is that's not anything amateurs. That's just him knowing his space. That guy knows his range. He knows it. He can slide his head back. If he knows he's about to get hit, he's not going to leave his chin up. He's going to drop levels and shoot. So that just shows he's really good at distance management. He's got a good jab. The overhand right has evolved, as you saw in the Conor fight. And, you know, and Poirier is one of the better strikers at 155 pounds. Arguably the best. Arguably. You know what I mean? You wouldn't want to, you know, there's a lot of good guys at 155, but he's definitely in the conversation for best strikers, and Khabib did a good job negating that. And he's a guy that's just ever evolving. You know what I mean? He's not the same guy he was when he fought Gleison Tibau at UFC 148. He's become a lot more polished. He's got a very educated jab. And I just think where he shines a lot as a striker is he's just very good with distance management. To be a really good grappler, you have to have a good concept of distance, because you can't just drop levels and shoot when the space isn't right or the timing isn't right. And, you know, and Khabib's distance management is as good as they come. He knows when he can slide his chin back, and if he knows he's about to get hit, he's just going to drop levels and take you down. Kind of a dual threat. So, yeah, his striking's evolved. That jab's good. Apparently, he learned it from DC. That's what the rumor is. That's what the rumor is. He learned it from DC, but I think Javier Mendez might have had a big part of that.
Right, I've seen you training with a variety of different athletes on this trip, but I'm wondering which has been your most memorable and unique experience.
Oh man, without a doubt, Rogerio Nogueira. I mean, like, I'm such a fan of the sport, and sometimes it's hard to contain myself. Like Megan kind of yesterday was like, Mike, don't try not to fanboy too much. I'm like, I'm trying. You know, it's hard not to. I've had such a tremendous appreciation for a lot of these guys I've seen since before I ever even started training, and as time has gone on, and they've come in the sport while I've been here as well. And that's just a guy that I grew up on. And there's, you know, guys like him. They kind of paved the path for us to be here where we are today. And I just have such a tremendous amount of respect for an athlete like that, and watching his career in Pride. And he's the only fighter to ever win a Pride belt and a UFC title, and he's just a legend. Like, it's just like the guy has presence, you know. And the fact that he just was like, hey, we're training today, I was like, oh my God, like, this is what it's all about. You know what I mean? When your time in the sun, when your time in the spotlight comes to an end, you're only left with one thing, and that's your relationships and your memories. You know what I mean? That's all you have left. And that'll be one of the best memories I've had in my whole career, was getting to train with a guy that I have looked up to and admired for so many years. It's one of the best. It's been like the highlight of this trip. So it's been that was a really cool experience for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions?
What is it about Nogueira that you love so much?
What's there not to love about him? I mean, the guy's had legendary wars. The fights that he had with Fedor, his comeback win over Crow Cop when he got pile drived by Bob Sapp, you know, when he beat Tim Sylvia, when Tim Sylvia was still the man at heavyweight, you know, and just the way he's persevered through his career. If you know his story before he ever even started competing, I mean, this is a guy that almost died, you know, and he got mauled by a tractor, if that's the story correctly, you know, and he went on to have one of the best heavyweight careers of all time. And, you know, I think it's just crazy. The guy, there's the reason why he's still here working for the UFC is because of all the things he's done for the sport. You know, he's helped pave the way for a lot of us guys, and he's a man that in my opinion, he just deserves a tremendous amount of respect from every person he crosses paths with, because he's one of a kind. He's a very special human being, and he's really nice, and he's really tough. And he's really tough. It was a fun training session, but I definitely walked out of there a little banged up. He's still got it. He's definitely still got it, for sure.
Obviously, earlier during the pandemic, you gave thoughts about, you know, why you're not going to take a fight at this time. As the months have gone on, do you still feel the same, or do you think that we could get something in the books for you?
Oh, dude, I am chomping at the bit to compete. After being here, being around the energy, getting a chance to train with some of these guys. You know, I still haven't had the chance to spar, but I mean, last night on floor 6, we had quite the training session, and dude, I want to compete, man. Like I love this opportunity I have now being an analyst, and it's something that I feel like I've taken advantage of this trip, and I've like stapled my spot. Like I'm gonna be one of the guys that's gonna be behind the desk for the duration of my career. I feel like I've kind of cemented that. But I'm a fighter. That's what I do. You know what I mean? And seeing these guys compete and I know a lot of the matchups that are going down at 170 pounds. I know what guys are available. I know what we're looking for right now. I was hoping to leave here with a matchup, but it doesn't matter. I'm hungry. I want to fight. I want to compete. I want to win a world title. And, I mean, the stars are aligning. It's all about quality, not quantity. You know, I've put my time in the sport. I've been here for 9 years. I've been in the top 10 for 5 years. Let's do it. I want to compete. So I think January is the right date for me. We'll see what happens. But I'll be ready when the time comes.
Was that matchup Hamza?
I can't tell you. There's no for sure matchup. We know what's available, you know. But everybody, especially after the face-off, everyone's like, "You're fighting Hamza." I'm like, that was just to tease you guys. That was just to throw a little gas on the fire. But he's a good kid.
Have you seen Kevin Lee's new tattoo?
Yeah. You know what? You'd be surprised, man. Like, I don't really have that many. Like, look, we had our feud. It's a very at this point, it's just a healthy competitive rivalry. We see each other at the PI. You know, we ask each other how we're doing, how's life. He'll even ask, you know, how's mom's doing? I'm like, mom's is good, you know, we're fine. It's just a healthy competitive rivalry, because as much as we'll be nice to each other, in the next 30 seconds, we'll be like, hey, you know, someday I'm going to beat your ass. You know what I mean? So you need healthy rivalries in the sport, but not a fan of the tattoo, but whatever suits him, man. I'm sure he doesn't like my tattoos either. You know, it's whatever. It's all good. Different strokes for different folks, I guess.
So you mentioned your face-off with Hamdan. How did it all happen? You guys were in the same restaurant?
I was getting off the elevator, and I was riding the elevator down with his buddies, and then he was down there, and he's just like, he's such a matter-of-fact guy. Like, you know, I think maybe in the press conference with Gerald, he talked a little trash, because that's what press conferences are for. But I think there's just like, he's learning his English, so he's very matter-of-fact. So I'm like, hey, man, good to meet you. And he's like, good to meet you. And he throws his arm away. So when are we going to fight, brother? I'm like, man, he sounds like you're fighting Magny in December, Weidman in January. I mean, if you can squeeze me in sometime in the spring, man, like, yeah. So he's just like super funny, super nice guy. And as confident as he is, he's definitely humble. You know what I mean? He's got that Khabib vibe to him. You know, he's confident, but he's humble. And he's a nice kid, man. Good, big things coming for that kid in the sport. But, yeah. Up and down the road, maybe #1 contender here as we both get some matches under our belts and see what happens. But yeah, good kid for sure.
Okay.
Yep.